We invite you to settle fully into this moment, to arrive not as a seeker reaching outward, but as a presence returning inward. Allow the weight of the day, the noise of the world, and the subtle anxieties clinging to your spirit to gently fall away without resistance. You're entering a space of recognition rather than anticipation, a quiet remembering of a truth that already exists within you. This is not about waiting for a future calling or searching for external confirmation, but about acknowledging a reality already written into the energetic architecture of your being, encoded long before you had language for it. There is a crucial distinction often overlooked in modern spirituality. The difference between hoping to be chosen and recognizing that the work has already been completed within you. Hoping keeps the power in the future. Recognition anchors it in the present. You are not striving to become the chosen one. You are integrating the consciousness of the sovereign being you were always meant to embody. This integration does not arrive with noise or spectacle. It unfolds in stillness, in moments where the ego quiets and illusion dissolves, leaving only what is real, durable, and unshakable. Your current reality is not random, nor is it a series of unfortunate delays. It is the fulfillment of an ancient agreement, one not made in time but in eternity. Every trial you endured, every period of isolation, and every moment where you chose integrity over ease has been part of a precise preparation. The journey of the chosen one is rarely celebrated in its painful middle, yet it is exactly in solitude, misunderstanding, and repeated testing that irreversible transformation takes place. This is not a change that might happen someday. It is an inevitable becoming, governed by the spiritual gravity of your soul's blueprint. Consider the chrysalis, not as a place of decay, but of necessary confinement. Nothing inside is struggling or forcing its way forward. It is obeying an unbreakable law that mandates emergence at the correct moment. Your current season of inner work and withdrawal is your chrysalis. The pressure you feel is not punishment, nor is it failure. It is the force restructuring your spiritual DNA so you can carry the light that is your inheritance without distortion. This is why certain connections now feel heavy, misaligned, or restrictive. As your frequency rises, your external reality must recalibrate. This is spiritual law, as precise and impartial as gravity. You are shedding old contracts, karmic entanglements, and low vibrational attachments, not through dramatic rupture, but through steady inner expansion. You are stepping into a lighter, more sovereign, and increasingly untouchable state of being. This transition requires silence and separation. What the world may interpret as withdrawal is, in truth, preservation, the sacred act of protecting the embryonic stage of your higher self. Now hear this clearly. The forces that observe you, both visible and unseen, adversarial and supportive, are already aware of your emergence. They have watched what was meant to break you, refine you instead. They recognize your trials not as failures, but as tools of preparation. And they are witnessing the formation of a spiritual authority, no longer vulnerable to old manipulations. This is the source of the resistance you feel, the subtle tension in certain relationships, and the quiet distancing from those who once had access to you. Consciously or not, they sense the crown being gently fitted to your essence, the shift from malleable to sovereign. Take a slow breath and let this truth settle deeply within you. This is not a call to arrogance, but to responsibility, discernment, and self-trust. Your becoming is not an effort. It is an unfolding, and the evidence of that transformation is already present. guiding you calmly and steadily into the final stage of your highest calling. Point 1. The ceasing of external validation. You are becoming utterly, profoundly self-sufficient in your spirit, and this cessation of the need for external affirmation is the bedrock of spiritual royalty. The long, exhausting chapter of seeking validation, of holding your breath, waiting for others to approve of your decisions, your path, or even your very existence, is not simply waning, it is dissolving entirely. Consider the psychological burden this need once placed upon you. Every action was filtered through a subconscious question. Will this please them? Will this earn their acceptance? Will this mitigate their potential criticism? This filtering process acted as a massive energy sink, diverting precious spiritual resources away from your true mission and into the maintenance of a comfortable, approved social persona. That frantic, anxious need is now being replaced by a profound, internal stillness, an anchored certainty that requires no external echo to confirm its reality. Your validation is now sourced internally, directly from the divine, unbroken alignment you cultivate in your solitude and your deepest meditative silence. This shift is not a philosophical preference, it is a structural change in your consciousness. You are, for the first time, perceiving yourself not through the fractured, distorted mirrors of other people's opinions, but through the clear, unclouded lens of your own divine inner knowing. This inner knowing speaks a singular, undeniable truth. You are sufficient. You are worthy. Your path is correct. This internal sovereignty is the defining characteristic of a true spiritual ruler, a soul whose worth is intrinsic, immutable, and not conferred by any fleeting external circumstance, title, or relationship. The external validation system which society relies upon for cohesion is fundamentally a system of control, keeping individuals perpetually dependent on the approval of the collective. By exiting the system, you declare energetic independence. This newfound independence is felt most acutely by those around you, particularly those who relied on your need for their approval to subtly manipulate or direct your actions. When they offer criticism, praise, or judgment, and it simply registers as noise without impacting your internal state of equilibrium, they intuitively recognize that they have lost their leverage. This recognition, on the subconscious level, is often interpreted as a loss of power, which can manifest externally as increased criticism, distance, or a strange passive aggression. The silence, the deep spiritual quiet that you now carry, speaks volumes without uttering a single word. It says, "My alignment is my authority. Your lack of reaction is the most powerful affirmation of your chosen status. Rest in this truth. The internal yes from the divine is infinitely more valuable than a million yeses from the world." Point 2. The shift from reaction to observation. The dramatic, undeniable shift that marks the chosen one's graduation is the movement from reacting to life's triggers to simply observing them. And this shift is not theoretical or aspirational. It is lived, embodied, and unmistakable. This is the elevation from being emotionally entangled in every passing disturbance to becoming a calm, sovereign witness within the ordinary theater of daily life, where once a sharp word, a delayed message, a traffic jam, or a sudden cancellation would infiltrate your nervous system, hijack your emotional state, and echo through your thoughts for hours or even days. Now these same events arrive and depart without establishing residence within you. They're registered, acknowledged, and released. You feel the initial sensation, a brief tightening, a flicker of irritation, a subtle disappointment, but it no longer spirals into identification. The moment arises, and the moment dissolves. This is the difference between gripping the stone and watching the ripple. The stone touches the water, the surface responds, yet the water remains what it is. Your inner state is no longer defined by what passes through it. This signals a fundamental rewiring of your spiritual and psychological architecture. The chosen one begins to understand, not intellectually but viscerally, that power does not live inside reaction. Power lives in awareness. This awareness creates space, and in that space, sovereignty is restored. This is the practice of spiritual discernment in its most practical form. When a trigger presents itself, the uninitiated reacts instantly, unconsciously activating the fight or flight response, flooding the body with cortisol and surrendering control to the primitive brain. The chosen one, however, inserts a pause, subtle, almost invisible to the outside world, yet monumental in its internal effect. In that pause, consciousness expands, the nervous system settles. The question arises not in language, but in energetic clarity. Is this mine to carry? Does this align with who I am becoming? Nearly every time the answer is no. And because the energy is not claimed, it cannot attach. It finds no emotional hook, no narrative to cling to, and no identity to merge with. It dissipates naturally like an electrical surge meeting a grounded wire. This groundedness becomes perceptible to others. People feel it before they understand it. Opposition, manipulation, and emotional provocation lose their effectiveness because they rely on engagement. When conflict is aimed at you and you refuse to mirror it, the instigator is forced into self-confrontation. They expect resistance and receive neutrality. They expect justification and receive silence. They expect emotional fuel and encounter stillness. This is profoundly destabilizing to the ego that survives on reaction and validation. Your non-response collapses the energetic feedback loop. This is not passivity, nor is it weakness. It is mastery. It is the conscious refusal to subsidize chaos with your life force. Importantly, this mastery is not suppression. You are not denying emotion or bypassing feeling. You are allowing emotion to exist without assigning it authority. You feel without feeding. You observe without identifying. You nourish states that expand you, clarity, peace, and composure, and allow lower states to wither from lack of attention. This is the silent declaration of inner rule. The pause becomes your throne. Your peace becomes self-generated, self-protected, and non-negotiable. Observation-based living is no longer a technique you practice. It becomes your default operating system. You move through the world awake, unhooked, and internally anchored, fully aware that nothing outside you has permission to govern your inner terrain unless you consciously grant it. Point 3, the emergence of sacred boundaries. Your natural, profound compassion is graduating into sacred boundaries, and this shift is one of the most visible, unmistakable, and transformative markers of your elevation. What once flowed outward without discernment is now refining itself into wisdom. True, mature spiritual power does not express itself as limitless, indiscriminate generosity that leaves you depleted and fragmented. It expresses itself as highly intentional, disciplined, and sovereign action. You are learning, not through theory or spiritual slogans, but through lived, often painful experience, that the highest form of love, the love that sustains your purpose and protects your calling, is often the word no, spoken calmly, without hostility, without explanation, but carried with unshakable resolve. This no is not cruelty, it is not abandonment, it is not rejection. It is a profound, sacred yes to your divine assignment, your energetic health, and the longevity of your mission. This is a foundational spiritual law, a chosen vessel, one designed to channel immense refined light for the benefit of the collective, must be kept whole, clear, and energetically uncontaminated. Light cannot pour freely through a cracked container. Power cannot stabilize within a body that is constantly leaking itself into unreciprocated connections. This is why the evolution of your boundaries is not optional. It is essential. In the past, driven by a deep, genuine, and beautiful empathy, you may have confused sacrifice with service, believing that exhaustion was evidence of goodness, that self-erasure was proof of love, and that enduring imbalance was a spiritual virtue. Now you understand something that only the initiated come to know. A drained vessel serves no one. Not the people who take from it, not the mission it was meant to fulfill, and certainly not the soul within it. Your emerging boundaries are not emotional reactions. They are a sophisticated energetic filtration system. They are not walls constructed from fear or bitterness, but sacred fences built from self-respect, self-knowledge, and a firm commitment to your highest alignment. These boundaries decide what energy is allowed proximity to your nervous system, your mind, and your spirit, and what must remain outside regardless of history, familiarity, or emotional pressure. This is where resistance arises. Those who benefited from your previous lack of boundaries, the emotional exploiters, the chronic takers, the low vibrational companions who fed on your accessibility, do not perceive your boundaries as growth. They experience them as loss. To them, your clarity feels like abandonment. Your self-respect feels like betrayal. Your silence feels like punishment. Their discomfort is not a reflection of your wrongdoing. It is evidence that an unsustainable energetic arrangement is ending. The pushback you encounter, the guilt-tripping, the accusations of selfishness, the subtle manipulation, the sudden spiritual language used against you, is the final reflex of a collapsing system that can no longer access you freely. Understand this deeply. Resistance does not mean you're on the wrong path. Resistance appears precisely when a boundary is effective. Stand firm in the truth that your highest service to the world is not self-destruction disguised as kindness, but the preservation of your spiritual integrity and energetic fullness. A sovereign does not beg for space, they declare it. A chosen one does not apologize for self-protection. They honor it. Every boundary you hold is a spiritual declaration that your life force is sacred, your presence is intentional, and your energy is non-negotiable. In protecting yourself, you are not becoming less loving, you are becoming precise, powerful, and aligned. And this is the form of love that endures. Point 4, the gift of time, slowing down. There is a profound, subtle, yet unmistakably real sense of spiritual expansion that begins to unfold when your consciousness rises beyond survival-based perception. And one of its clearest signs is the feeling that time itself is slowing down around you. This experience is not imaginary, poetic exaggeration, or wishful thinking. It is one of the most refined markers of inner elevation, though it is notoriously difficult to articulate. What is dissolving is not time itself, but your former relationship to it. The anxiety that once haunted your inner world, the persistent fear of falling behind, the sense that life was racing forward without you, the urgency to catch up to invisible deadlines imposed by society, comparison, or ego, is quietly evaporating. In its place, you are entering a deeper rhythm, one that feels ancient, steady, and profoundly intelligent. You are aligning with divine timing, not as a belief, but as a lived reality. This shift is both neurological and energetic. The nervous system is releasing its addiction to urgency, moving away from the high beta brainwave patterns associated with chronic stress, hypervigilance, and compulsive striving. As this happens, your mind naturally settles into calmer alpha and theta states, where intuition sharpens, creativity flows without force, and insight arises effortlessly. In these states, perception itself changes. Minutes feel fuller, hours feel expansive. You notice that you are no longer rushing through experiences, yet paradoxically, you accomplish more with less effort. This is because spiritual acceleration does not occur through frantic motion or ego-driven urgency, but through deep, sustained alignment with the present moment. The present moment is not a spiritual cliché. It is the only true point of power. It is the only place where clarity emerges, decisions become precise, and creation actually happens. When consciousness drifts into the past, it feeds regret and self-judgment. When it projects into the future, it generates fear and imaginary pressure. Both states leak energy. Presence, however, concentrates it. When you fully inhabit the now, when you embody the understanding that everything you need, insight, opportunity, strength, timing is already contained within this moment. Time appears to stretch and reorganize itself around your focus. Tasks no longer feel overwhelming. Choices become obvious. Movement becomes intentional instead of reactive. This ability to slow your inner world while the external world continues to rush is not passivity. It is mastery. It is one of the most underestimated spiritual powers available to a human being. From this inner stillness arises a level of clarity, discernment, and foresight that those trapped in perpetual urgency cannot access. They skim the surface of life, constantly reacting to waves. You, by contrast, are anchored deep beneath the surface, where the water is calm, where currents can be observed rather than fought. From this depth, you perceive patterns before they fully form. You sense when to act and when to wait. You hear the quiet, precise signals of intuition that are completely drowned out by hurry, noise, and emotional overload. Slowing down in this sense is not withdrawal from life. It is a deliberate spiritual act of sovereignty. It is the reclaiming of your authority over perceived limitations, deadlines, and pressures that were never truly yours to carry. The world may continue to rush, to panic, to scramble for control, but you are no longer governed by its tempo. You are moving to the rhythm of something eternal, something exact, something incapable of error. That rhythm does not rush, and it never arrives late. It unfolds with perfect intelligence, and as you synchronize with it, you realize that you have not lost time at all. You have simply learned how to inhabit it fully, and in doing so, you have stepped into a dimension where everything arrives precisely when it is meant to. Point 5, the attraction of mentors and guides. As you successfully align your consciousness and integrate your newfound sovereignty, something subtle yet unmistakably powerful begins to occur beneath the surface of your daily life. Your spiritual frequency shifts from passive resonance to active magnetism. You are no longer merely perceiving truth or sensing alignment, you are broadcasting it. This elevated state acts as a precise signal, drawing toward you specific high-level mentors, guides, opportunities, and strategic resources, often arriving in forms so unexpected that the rational mind would once have dismissed them as coincidence. Yet this is no coincidence. It is a quiet, but unmistakable confirmation from the universe that the pupil has reached readiness, and readiness activates response. In earlier phases of your journey, guidance may have felt elusive or fragmented. You may have searched widely, consumed countless teachings, followed various voices, or hoped someone external would provide clarity or rescue. That phase was necessary, but it was preparatory. Now the seeking dissolves, because the dynamic has reversed. You are no longer chasing guidance. Guidance is locating you. It arrives effortlessly, often without announcement, embedded in ordinary moments that carry extraordinary precision. A casual conversation suddenly delivers insight that resolves a long-standing internal question. A book appears at exactly the moment you are ready to understand it, not intellectually, but operationally. A memory resurfaces. A teaching you once overlooked, now revealing itself as a key instruction for your current stage. These moments are not symbolic fluff, they are functional intersections between your elevated internal state and the external world. Your frequency has reached compatibility with the information you require next. And compatibility is what creates convergence. The universe, operating with exact intelligence rather than emotional urgency, surrounds those on the brink of sovereignty with tailored counsel. These mentors and guides do not arrive to instruct you from above or override your will. They appear as equals, collaborators, and mirrors. Their role is not to hand you power, but to confirm the authority you already embody. They validate what you have intuitively known, sharpen your discernment, and introduce frameworks that expand your capacity without destabilizing your center. This attraction also transcends the physical plane. As your internal noise quiets and your identity stabilizes, communication with energetic guidance becomes clearer and more consistent. Spirit guides, ancestral wisdom, and protective intelligences no longer need to shout through signs or crises. Their guidance arrives as calm certainty. Solutions emerge, fully formed during stillness. Decisions clarify themselves without mental strain. The next step becomes obvious, not because it is forced, but because resistance has dissolved. This is not imagination or wishful thinking. It is the natural result of coherence. When your inner state reaches order, higher order assistance becomes efficient. The universe does not allocate its most refined support systems to those still entangled in chaos, self-doubt, or dependency. It responds to maturity. What you are experiencing is the universe acknowledging that your level of responsibility, discernment, and self-governance now qualifies you for a deeper partnership. This is co-creation in its truest form, not asking, begging, or hoping, but receiving, because alignment has already been established. Trust the timing of these encounters. Respect the subtlety of how they arrive. Do not dismiss them as random and do not cling to them as saviors. Absorb the wisdom, integrate the resonance, and continue moving forward with grounded confidence. These synchronistic arrivals are factual indicators that your reality is now being shaped in collaboration with higher intelligence, at a level far beyond your previous understanding and entirely commensurate with the sovereign being you have become. Point 6, the irreversible release of shame. One of the deepest and most insidious wounds that opposing forces attempt to weaponize against the chosen one is the implantation, reinforcement, and prolonged cultivation of shame tied to past mistakes, perceived flaws, or painful experiences that once felt irreversible. This shame is not accidental. It is designed to anchor your consciousness to a version of yourself that no longer exists, to keep you negotiating with a past that has already completed its function. The irreversible release of this shame is not optional at this stage. It is a non-negotiable marker of your final becoming. You are now moving from a state of quiet self-condemnation into a state of complete, grounded self-acceptance, rooted not in denial, but in a mature, divine understanding of causality, growth, and purpose. Every perceived failure in your life, every wrong turn, every lapse in judgment, every moment of weakness, every decision you once replayed with regret is now being correctly interpreted through spiritual clarity, not as a permanent stain, but as a required lesson, an essential building block, or a necessary deviation on a path that was uniquely customized for your evolution. What once appeared as delay was actually preparation. What once felt like loss was recalibration. The narrative of self-blame collapses because you can now see it for what it truly was, a construct of the lower ego, reinforced by external manipulation designed to keep you small, hesitant, and immobilized. The divine perspective you are now accessing with increasing stability does not traffic in corrosive shame. It deals in refinement, integration, and truth. This is why the internal dialogue has shifted. You no longer ask, "Why did I fail?" because that question assumes a flawed design. Instead, you ask, what strength, awareness, or spiritual resource was activated as a direct result of that experience? And the answers arrive with clarity. You understand now that the pain of the past was the catalyst for the depth of empathy you carry today. Without the dark valleys, your compassion would be shallow. Without confusion, your discernment would be incomplete. Without betrayal, your boundaries would lack precision. Without being misled, you could not now stand as a beacon of clarity for others who are still navigating the fog. This freedom from shame is not dramatic or loud. It is quiet, factual, and unshakable. It is the internal recognition that your past has fulfilled its assignment. It is no longer a ball and chain dragging you into a lower vibration. It is finished, integrated, and archived as necessary data. Those who seek to control or diminish you rely on unresolved shame to maintain leverage. They repeat old stories. They highlight former versions of you. But when you fully integrate your past, embracing both shadow and light, you remove their primary weapon. When an old mistake is mentioned, your body no longer contracts. Your spirit does not flinch. There is no defensive explanation, no internal collapse, only calm acceptance, and sometimes even quiet gratitude for the wisdom that experience produced. This response disarms them completely because there's nothing left to manipulate. Your ability to transmute shame into wisdom is the undeniable proof that you are operating at a level of consciousness where judgment, self-rejection, and external condemnation hold no authority. You are forgiven not by an outside system, not by approval, not by time, but by the highest, most loving, most sovereign part of yourself, and that forgiveness is final. Point 7, the authority in your gentle presence. The glorious, quiet culmination of your becoming is the emergence of an undeniable, self-evident authority that resides not in force, volume, or display, but in the calm gravity of your gentle presence. This is the final and most potent marker of your transformation, the signal that requires no announcement, because it is already known, already felt, and already recognized on a level deeper than language. You have reached a state of energetic and psychological integration where the urge to speak loudly, to assert dominance, to persuade, to impress, or to defend your position has dissolved entirely. Nothing remains to be proven. Your authority is no longer something you perform. It is something you radiate. It exists as an ambient field, a quiet pressure that subtly reshapes the emotional and psychological climate of any space you enter. The room feels different when you arrive, not because you demand attention, but because coherence has entered the environment. This shift was not achieved through striving or imitation, but through long, consistent alignment, through the disciplined reconciliation of your inner world, where your thoughts, emotions, values, and actions have gradually come into agreement with your highest spiritual truth. When that coherence becomes stable, your presence itself becomes trustworthy. Your aura carries a peaceful density, a grounded stillness that others register instinctively, often before they consciously notice you. When you speak, your words do not rush or compete. They arrive with weight, clarity, and restraint. They bypass surface-level defenses and settle directly into the listener's inner space, not through persuasion, but through resonance. People find themselves slowing down in your presence, their nervous systems responding to yours, their internal noise quieting without effort. They listen more deeply, not because you demanded respect, but because your field naturally evokes it. This is the signature of true spiritual royalty: power without aggression, authority without enforcement, and leadership without performance. Like a queen or king who does not need to wear a crown to be recognized, your authority lives in your bearing, your gaze, your pacing, and your restraint. It is visible in the way you move without haste, speak without excess, and remain centered regardless of external chaos. The external world, particularly those operating from low vibrational motives, control, manipulation, insecurity, dominance, recognizes this emanation instantly. They sense that this is not a hierarchy they can climb, negotiate, or undermine. This authority is not derived from social position, validation, or influence. It is rooted in internal spiritual substance. It cannot be challenged because it does not engage in contests. It cannot be manipulated because it does not seek outcomes. It cannot be co-opted because it answers to no external incentive. At a subconscious level, they understand that to engage you now is to encounter clarity, truth, and accountability, qualities that destabilize false power structures. This is why some individuals suddenly become deferential, respectful, or unusually cautious around you, while others quietly withdraw, avoiding your presence altogether. Your light does not attack them. It simply reveals what they are not prepared to confront. Both responses are confirmations, not judgments, of the authority you now embody effortlessly. Your final task is not to sharpen this power into a weapon, not to use it to dominate or correct, but to rest fully within it. Allow your gentleness to remain intact. Allow your calm to stay sovereign. Let your presence do the work that force never could. By simply being aligned, you become a stabilizing influence, a quiet axis around which chaos loses momentum. Your gentle presence becomes the radical agent of change, not through intervention, but through example, coherence, and peace. Chosen one, you have reached the point of no return. The metamorphosis is complete. Your becoming is 100% guaranteed, and the transformation is already manifesting in the stillness you possess, the fierce discernment you deploy, and the profound peaceful recalibration of your entire internal world. You are not waiting for a future moment of crowning. You are wearing the spiritual crown now, in the quiet solitude of your inner life. The forces of resistance are not fading because you are fighting them. They are fading because your increased light makes them non-viable in your vicinity. Your task now is not to strive, but to surrender to this finished work. Rest deeply and securely in the knowledge that your destiny is sealed. You are anchored in the divine matrix. Continue to seek the calm, the quiet, and the factual, undeniable truth of your own magnificent royal existence. The time for hiding your light or negotiating your worth is over. Settle into the profound, peaceful certainty of your crown. You are already there.